All right, William, I'm very excited to have William on the show today. He is a 26-year experienced Navy SEAL, retired now, of course, and has got some amazing experience in peak performance, team leadership, teams, how to run effective teams, and just really push through some hard stuff, as we all know what Navy SEALs do themselves. But William, I want to say thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be here. We played a little back and forth, try to set this up, and finally making it happen. And we got weird time zone things going on too. So
I was going to say you are one of the lucky people who actually lives in Hawaii. Everyone says I want to have the laptop lifestyle and live in Hawaii, and I feel like you've done it.
I don't know if I haven't quite achieved it yet, but I do live in Hawaii and I do work off a laptop at least half the time. So.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So I want to start this show, as I always do, with an impact question. And the thing that I really want to ask, and I think the audience would be interested in, after 26 years of being a Navy SEAL, and that is, in my eyes, the peak of a, the Navy's body of work, what is the thing that you've taken away from that experience that has stuck with you today, and you keep on sort of living that as wow, that was my takeaway? And it must be hard to pick one, but yeah, what's the thing, or the thing that sticks with you from that experience?
That is a very complicated question, and I'll try to distill it down. And it's interesting, like as I transitioned out of the military and I didn't have a mission anymore, I had to figure out I had to sort of answer that very question for myself so that I could find my new mission and figure out what value I could bring to society. And I think, there's so many answers to this question.
No, it's okay.
And I think, I want to say leadership. I want to say, have a can-do, never quit attitude. There's so many things, but I've, as I'm sort of building my company, and I'm putting together a coaching program, I kind of go back to, these 5 tenets of, sort of thinking like a Navy SEAL, and it's the acronym NAKED, and so kind of my slogan right now is get naked, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So the N is for never quit, because it doesn't matter how hard the thing is. If you decided that you wanted to do it, then why would you quit? If you said, hey, let's do this, why quit? Now, if it's worth doing, it's worth finishing. Now, it's going to be hard, whatever it is, whether it's SEAL training or getting your degree or starting a podcast or whatever it is. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have challenges, and you just have to plow through them. And you can't accomplish it in a day. So what you end up doing is you create places to take breaks. You set yourself up for success, and you create small victories along the way. And those small victories set you up. And this is a lesson that I learned really in kind of POW school, where we were prisoners of war. First, we were out in the wilderness, and they didn't let us eat, and you just had to survive. And then they brought you in, and you became a prisoner of war after a couple weeks out in the wilderness. And they didn't feed you; they just gave you water, and they maybe beat you up a little bit and interrogated you and all these other things. And what they teach you is to have small victories. This is if you were for real in a POW, you would. And they tell you, if they slap you around, I got slapped a lot. Apparently I have a bad attitude. That's the equivalent of a butt stock to the face. So what you need to do, instead of being arrogant and macho or whatever, is just, give them a little of what they're looking for. And you don't really know when it's going to end. In training you do, but in real life you wouldn't know when that was going to end. So what you do is you just find small victories in what you're doing. So being a prisoner of war, there's no end in sight for that. It could be years, and that's what happened in Vietnam for many Americans. And so what they the guys learned is like, if they say don't look to the left, you basically turn your eyes and you look to the left, and you went, like you just won this like mental campaign against breaking you down. So I just like built myself back up. They knocked me down 3 steps. I built myself back up 1. And every time you get one of those little victories, you win. And so that's part of the never quit mindset. So the N for naked is never quit. The A is accept failure, because in life, failure will happen. And, in SEAL teams, in SEAL training, especially in training, everyone fails. And I saw more beast, more just alpha male macho studs quit because they couldn't stand the thought of failing in training, because no matter what, you're always going to fail. You're going to lose, you're going to whatever, you're going to fail. And they couldn't stand that in their mind. And, if you look at, throughout history, people will, success has been built on a foundation of failure. So accept failure. The K is kill mediocrity, because the world is just mediocre. And why do we want to live in a mediocre world? E is expose your fears. We all have fears. And if we just keep them like buried somewhere in the back of our mind, they just end up consuming us. That beast is going to break out. So it's better if you let it out and you tame it and you expose it, and then you can kill it. And the D is to do the work. So without getting too far down that rabbit hole, I'm going to lead that with as my official answer.
No, that's fantastic, and that explains to me why your company name is why it is, and it also speaks. Man, we could do a whole podcast on that, and you could do like really go into depth on N and A.
I tried to pull the reins back on it, because I get very excited and fired up about it.
So I want to explore the N of that, and the never give up, because that's the thing that people associate with a Navy SEAL, because people movies and they see it, so they get some like a taste, I would say 5% of what it's actually like. And I want to ask you the question, so for people that actually don't know what a Navy SEAL is, and sorry for asking such a simple, basic, boring question, what is a Navy SEAL? Why are they held in such high regard in terms of why there's so many movies and all this kind of stuff about them? And just a quick summary, and then I'll go more in depth on the N and ask, because that'll be tied to that question.
It's actually a really good question, because when I was a kid, I didn't know what a Navy SEAL was. I had never heard of it. We didn't have books and movies and Hollywood and things like that. And so what a Navy SEAL is, it's an organization in the Navy, and they are commandos, really focusing on coming from the water. And Navy SEALs became more popular, they really cemented what they can do in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, they're in jungles, there's rivers all around, and what separated the Frogmen or the Navy SEALs, they were underwater demolition team back then, but what separated them from the Army Special Forces, Green Berets, or the Marines, or anything like that, is they always came from the water. So because being part of the Navy and the history of the Frogmen, of the underwater demolition teams, dates back to World War II. If you've ever seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, that first 20 minutes of the assault force coming across the beach, the things that happened prior to that assault force were the Navy went out and asked for a bunch of volunteers to come in and basically do a survey of the beach. Well, the beach is heavily guarded by the Germans. And so they wanted some people with some demolition experience. So the Navy went out and got volunteers. These guys would take little rubber boats in. They would hop in the water, swim to shore, take notes of what is going on the shore, what kind of fighting positions, what kind of obstacles. And then they would get out in the water and they would line up, and they would be about 25 yards apart, or meters if you're in Australia. and they would measure the depth of the water with a rock and a string that has markings every 6 feet or knots every 6 feet. They would measure the depth of the water, mark it on their little slate that they had around their neck. Then they would dive underwater, look for obstacles that an assault craft could get caught up on. If they found an obstacle underwater, they swam about 25 yards along the bottom, and then they would mark that obstacle on their slate, and then they would do 3,000 to 5,000 yards of beach a night. So that was the beginning of, and then they would go back to the ship, and then they would create, hand draw a chart that showed like obstacles, depth of the water, obstacles in the water, and then prior to that Saving Private Ryan, assault on Normandy, these guys went in about a few hours ahead of time. They found all the obstacles that they could in the water and the ones that they could get to on the beach while taking fire from the Germans that are, in machine gun nests. And they put demolition charges on those obstacles. They swam back out, and then as the assault force, the Allied forces are coming ashore. They blow the obstacles. So there's like explosions. There, the naval gunfire support is like trying to keep the Germans from shooting at them, but they're going to do it anyway. And, just covering their movement. And so that's where they got started. Then they moved on to the Pacific, and they did similar job in the Pacific. Then they were kind of like, what are we going to do with these guys? And then Vietnam started. So the same group of guys, and I've, met many Vietnam era frogmen who they were underwater demolition team guys back in the day. And then they talked to me about how they transitioned from being like, they're diving all the time to, working land warfare and, these very unconventional tactics that they would use. And that has just matured into what is today's Navy SEAL. And so basically we use very unconventional tactics when we go in and we fight the enemy. So, a conventional force will come in, they'll take over an area, they'll lock it down, and then they'll kind of systematically maneuver through the area. Where we as a special operations guy, we will, it can be completely enemy, held by the enemy. But, let's just say Afghanistan, for example, there's only one, and there's a target. Bad guys, maybe there's a hostage there. There's, and we need to go get the hostage and maybe, have a few less bad guys in the world. And so rather than like driving up the road that's booby trapped and there's people looking out, what we'll do is we'll start on the mountain range, on the like 2 mountain ranges over, and we'll walk over 1 mountain range, back down, up, 10,000 feet, down to the backside of this compound, and then we'll, hit the target where they're not looking. And that's basically the mindset of what special operations and what maybe how we work and how we think is we don't want to hit a target directly where they're the strongest. We want to find where your weakness is, and that's how we want to attack you.
That's really cool. And I think
I don't know if I answered your question, but
you definitely did, especially at the end there. The thing where it's like, don't attack someone head on, find a way that find the weakness, find the way that's actually easiest to enter
them. Yes. And that's something that we teach during training is we teach, the enemy is right there. They're looking at you. You don't want to attack them straight on. You want to do an end around and like hit them from the side where maybe you create a big diversion over here so that they're looking over here and they never look to the side. And then that's where you hit them.
Well, that's almost like in boxing terms, they call it jab, 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 right hook, right? Like you're doing that, and then I can relate that back to a business sense. Anyone that from that and going like, this is the difference between someone sending a spam LinkedIn message that's like buy my stuff straight up, versus I'm going to give value, I'm going to leave value, I'm going to leave value, and then I'm gonna pitch my product.
And then you buy from me, right?
Yeah.
You build that no like trust factor, and then and maybe you want to buy this.
Yeah, which I know that's quite funny taking a war concept, but that's how I thought. That's how my brain went. It was like, hang on, there's a similarity there. So that's really really quite cool. Thank you for telling me that.
Certainly.
I want to. So in order to get to those unconventional ways, you need to go through some pretty rigorous training. And I know that you probably get asked this on a daily basis on podcasts, but the buds training, I think the one before that is SRT training. Correct me if I was wrong there, but tell me about buds and tell me about that experience, and then what that taught you about the N of naked that you were talking about in terms of never give up. And you would have seen some people give up in that training, and so yeah, tell us about that training, and then I'll go more in depth on those questions for sure.
So that training it's a selection. It's a selection process. And I'll start off by saying it's a selection process. And even everyone that graduates SEAL training, graduates BUDS, basic underwater demolition SEAL training, they don't all become SEALs, or they don't stay SEALs. Sometimes, you just don't quit, and you are, you can get, find your way onto a SEAL team. But once you get to a SEAL team, you still may not be a good fit for the job that you're doing. So, and in that case, it kind of sucks, but then we have to remove guys from those positions. So just because you make it through this, the hardest training in the world doesn't mean that you still get to do the job, because you don't have it here, because guys don't trust you to go into harm's way. Like we have to trust you in order to, have my back. So SEAL training, it takes place in Coronado, California, which is a little spit of land in San Diego. And some beautiful Southern California. And let me tell you something. People don't believe me when I tell you this, but the water in San Diego is frigid most of the year. There's a few months of the year where it's nice to be in. The rest of the time, it numbs to your core very quickly. But SEAL training is broken up into 3 main phases. First phase is where they really are breaking you down to see what you have. And this is where most people quit, with the highest attrition rate. You have about 80% of the people who go to BUDS, quit. And it's not that they weren't awesome athletes or anything like that. They just didn't have the mental fortitude to do the job. They didn't, kind of what I talked about earlier. They weren't okay with failure. They weren't okay being told, like, you suck. Hey, you know what? Because everyone else failed, you fail also. So go get wet and sandy, or go do this, or go do that. And they were not okay with that. And other parts of it where they weren't cool, getting back in that ocean. And so the first block of training, it also has the most, famous week in military training, which is called Hell Week. And it's 5.5 days of no sleep. And actually it's really 6 days, 6.5 days of no sleep, because, and I'll tell you about mine just really quickly. So you start Sunday, you go through, you kind of like prepare, you have like pizza delivered, you watch some movies, and then Sunday night is when Hell Week starts. Like they said, okay, now it's time, go get in the tents, and we're going to come get you in a minute. And they come and get you with like machine guns and bombs going off, and it's just like total chaos. And, they're screaming at you, and then you run out and you do different exercises on the grinder, and they're like spraying you with fire hoses, and again, more guns and explosions. And it's just like total chaos. And and if you just stop and you kind of look at it, and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And, but it does mess with people. And then, from there you go and you do like a 4-mile timed run. Then you go do log PT, and you do all these events, and you get your little rubber boat, and you put that thing on your head, and you live with that boat on your head pretty much for the next 5.5 days. So it starts Sunday night, it ends on Friday afternoon sometime. And so kind of one of the cool things that happened during my Hell Week. So actually, let me even rewind before that. Saturday night, you want to get as much sleep as you can, just because you're like, oh, I'm going to be awake for the next week. I'm not going to sleep. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if this was planned. I never heard of it happening before, but for some reason, almost the entire night, the fire alarm in the barracks was going off. So number one, you can't sleep. That thing is loud. And then number two, you have to evacuate, make sure there's no fire in the barracks. So for about 4 hours, Saturday night into Sunday morning, we had, there was like pretty much no sleep happening. And then all day Sunday, you're kind of getting ready. You're preparing your boats, your paddles, your life jackets, your uniform, your boots. You're getting everything because you have these inspections every day throughout the week where they, make sure that you don't have like flesh-eating bacteria or whatever. Check your hygiene and things like that. So you're busy all day Sunday getting all of that stuff ready. And then you go into a room and then you watch a couple of movies. And one of the movies that we watched was called Major Pain. I don't know if you've ever seen it. And so I highly recommend it. It's a comedy, and it's about a Marine who is this like, badass that goes around the world and like, takes out people. And I forgot the guy's name. He's a black comedian, super funny. And he has this sort of laugh like this. And so, during Hell Week, things get kind of like, you get kind of down, you're cold and wet and sandy the whole time. And every now and then someone will throw out like a Major Pain quote or just start laughing or, whatever. And then that just like lightens the whole mood for the entire class. Let's see. In my Hell Week, we lost about 70% of the people. And one of the things that I learned in Hell Week, just to kind of talk about that never quit and sort of mindset, is, Hell Week sucks. Like, it's work. They make you run around and everything is a competition and everything is whatever. And what I learned is I somehow got into a boat crew. We're a bunch of just average dudes. There was nothing special about us at all. We were average at best. But one thing was different about the guys in that boat crew than any of the other boat crews is anytime they said, let's go, the guys in that group, you're going to suffer. Suffering is inevitable. And everyone, it was sort of this unspoken rule is we're going to suffer in the front of the line and not in the back. Some people were like, I'm just here, I'm doing my thing. And, I got in this boat crew and they were just like running everywhere. I'm like, oh, I need to keep up with my peers. I can't be the slow man. I have to actually I learned a lot about myself when I was surrounded by these guys that were, they wanted to be in the front. They're like, we're cool suffering, but we're going to suffer in the front. And I was like, that's awesome. That is like the best lesson that I've ever learned in my life. And I didn't really even learn it then. I kind of did. It was sort of planted the seed and I learned it later on. Like I was like more reinforced. So that's the first phase of BUDS. The second phase of BUDS is diving, where you learn to breathe scuba. And then there's an event called Pool Comp where you're wearing this Jacques Cousteau style regulator, inhalation, exhalation hose. And then you're crawling along the bottom of the pool and the instructors come down and they rip your regulator out of your mouth. They rip your everything off. You're on a breath hold. They tie your regulator in a knot. And your job is to untie everything in a very specific manner. This is all about paying attention to detail or doing things attention to detail and putting everything back on. And you're doing it on a breath hold until you can get like one little bubble out. And until you get to the end and they put the whammy knot in it. And the whammy knot is this knot that you cannot untie underwater. And then you have to, while you're on a breath hold, you're totally struggling for air. You put everything in a little pile in a certain way, and then you ask permission to go to the surface. And then an instructor will swim down, and he will punch you in the stomach to make sure that you exhale all of your air before you get to the surface. Because if you take a compressed air underwater, hold your breath, and go to the surface, you will embolize yourself, and that's really, really bad. That's really bad for your health. So, fortunately for me, I failed the first time I did it, but the second time I was so determined to untie to get one little bubble of air, I untied 3 whammy knots in a row. So they were like, all right, fine, you passed. So I didn't have to do the whatever to the surface. And I was happy to be done with that. So then you transition from there into diving a rebreather. So it's 100% O2 rig. Which is there's no bubbles. You can be underwater for 4 hours if you're really, really good. In the way that you get where you're going is you plan your dive. You have a compass, a depth gauge, and a watch. And you take a certain bearing and you swim out for a certain amount of time. You know how long it's going to take you to get there. And then you make your turn and then you swim into your target, or maybe 2 or 3 turns. But you never break the surface of the water. You never look up. You don't have GPS or anything like that. All you know is your your depth and your time and your distance, and that's how you figure out where you are and then how you get back. And then the last phase of buds is land warfare, where you learn how to shoot, you learn how to do small unit tactics and things like that, and then you graduate. And then the actual then the actual work begins. So you think you're doing work and you're like going through this whole process of like never quit. Like that's just a selection portion. Once you get to a SEAL team, now you actually have to work. You have to prove that you deserve to be there, and you have to prove to your teammates. They don't care that you graduated buds. Every one of them graduated buds. Now you're at the team. Let's see if you're actually worth, training and teaching and being part of the team. So that was kind of what I was talking about earlier. Guys may graduate, but they get to the team and then they don't perform at the team. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Oh, you answered and exceeded. There's so much in there that I want to unpack. One of the details I picked up on was when you very first started Hell Week and there's bombs going off and things going off. You said a little thing that you said where there was, if you actually take yourself out of the moment and you go, this is cool. And so many people would be so stressed in that element and not be able to focus on this is actually cool. I think, do you think in terms of the mental, like you talked about the mental of getting through even that section of it, do you think that's a part of why you succeeded? Because you were able to step back and go, hang on, this is actually, like, I'm lucky to be here. This is very cool.
I was lucky to be there. I considered myself lucky every day that I was there because it took a long time. That's a whole nother, thing that we could talk about. But, my journey just to get there, it took me 3 years after I joined the Navy to get there, where I made some errors along the way. And then eventually I got the opportunity, and I got injured several times while I was there. Buds is 6 months long. I was there for 13 months to the day of graduation. And every day that I was there, I just felt lucky. It didn't matter how miserable it was. I was like, I'm stoked to be here. But as far as like kind of like stepping back and looking at what was going on during that breakout session of Hell Week, someone that, that was 1 or 2 classes in front of me said, you know what? While you're going through Hell Week, while you're going through the whole breakout thing, just take a step to the side and then look around and just take all of it in and observe it, and then tell me what you think about that. And so I was like, that's great advice. Instead of just being completely consumed by the moment, and that's a great lesson to be able to like take your whatever situation you're in and to just like detach yourself and just like step away, look around, see what's going on. Okay, got it. Let's go. And so that has been a lesson that I have carried throughout my entire career. It didn't matter if we were in a gunfight or if we're training or whatever it was. Being able to like kind of like step back and like really take notice of what's going on around you and then engage.
Yeah. And let me talk to the fact that like teams. So if someone was to do buds by themselves, right? It's my guess that if someone was to do it just by themselves, they would fail very quickly. But if you are a team and you said like someone would crack a joke, right? Someone would say something funny from Major Pain, I think it was what you said.
Yeah.
And or we're gonna push through this as a team. We're gonna like go from the front, not from the back. How does that push you to the next level, knowing that it's not just you doing this, but you've got mates doing it as well?
So, this is buds is an individual event because you have individual skills that you have to do. You have to run, 4 miles in a certain amount of time. You have to do the obstacle course in a certain amount of time. You have to do swims in a certain amount of. They're individual, but they also, from the beginning, they put you in what's called a boat crew, and you are in a team of 7 guys, and your job is to work together. You're either carrying this log, which was the most miserable part of buds for me. I remember in Hell Week, when we did log PT, I was so happy because I knew I would never have to touch that log again. I was like, yes, this is amazing. I love this. But that's the point, is to teach you teamwork, and you are only as strong as your weakest link. So either you have to get rid of that weak link, or you have to bring them up. and it depends on their strengths or weaknesses, what they bring to the team, and if they're going to be a good team member or not. So, as a class, you're a team, but you're also broken up into smaller teams. And that's kind of, the SEAL teams. It's a big team, 120 or so guys, but those are broken up into smaller teams and then smaller teams within the team. So being a SEAL is different than a lot of other special operations because we focus so heavily on the team and growing the team and the power of the team and things like that. So,
yeah. Well, that leads me to my next question is, especially like relevant for corporate environment, people hiring, firing, getting culture, getting team. But bringing it back to I guess the Navy SEAL answer and then the civilian answer, what makes a good team? What makes a good team?
Culture makes a good team. Leadership makes a good team. Those are the two keys to building a good team. And so, culture is how you treat one another, holding each other to a higher expectation. So, when I was in the SEAL teams, I had to every day, it didn't matter if a guy was senior to me or junior to me or whatever, I had to show up and I had to be the best version of me because, my fear of failure or my fear of letting my team down, kind of like being in that boat crew. Like these guys were like, we're going to get to the front of the line. We started in the back. We're just going to eat. We're going to go eat. And then we could take the boat off of our head and be inside for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is, and try not to fall asleep, because if you fall asleep while eating, you are hell to pay. But when I got into, and I saw these guys, I wasn't in that boat crew early in Hell Week, like on Sunday and into Monday, I saw this boat crew winning all the races. And I was in a boat crew where guys were like, I don't know if I want to be here. I'm kind of whining. And I'm like, bro, I've been here for almost 6 months already. I don't want to hear all this whining. When I first showed up into Buds, I was like, don't quit, no. And now I'm like, beat it. You're in my way. Bad attitude, maybe not the best example, but I had a mission to accomplish. And then I'm watching this other boat crew, and I know they're suffering the same as us, but they're in the front. And then some other people quit, and then we lined up again, and I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I want to be a boat crew 3. I totally put myself in that boat crew. I might have bumped someone out. I'm not sure. Nor did I care. Because I wanted to be surrounded by winners. I wanted to be surrounded by guys who wanted to suffer in the front, not in the back. And so and that's true in life. That's true on any team that you need. Like I know someone said, that you are the product of the top 5 people around you. I don't remember who that was, but they were super smart in saying that. And, I saw that team as a team I wanted to be on. And so now that I'm out of the SEAL teams, I have had to kind of redo that. I had to find my new team. And, I live in Hawaii. So my team is not necessarily on this island. They're all over the world. They're all over, the United States. And so, but I have technology so that I can stay connected to them. So, so the cultural environment for business, your culture, make sure that you have a winning team, and you have to build that through leadership. And leadership is not telling people what to do or how to do it. Leadership is about being of service. Leadership is about, you take care of your team. Maybe you give them some direction. You train them on how to do it. You give them some direction, and they will go and execute it as violently as they can. And so that's what, and you support them in whatever they need. Your job as a leader, one is to know the vision of the company, point that vision to your team, train them on how to accomplish it, and then say, go get them, and support them along the way.
That's awesome. How do you lift up a team member? How do you lift them up? Like if you've given them a task and they come back and they're like, I struggled with this, or they didn't complete it to your standard that you thought it would be completed at, how do you lift them up and maybe motivate them to go and do better?
That's a good question. That's a really complicated question, actually, because some team members, you can't. It doesn't work. But if they want to be there and they want to be part of the team and they want to grow and learn and and be part of the team and achieve the greatness that they can achieve, then that comes back. That's leadership and that's culture and that's training them. And maybe you as a leader may not be the smartest person to train them in a certain task, but you can assign someone to train them. And then you evaluate them. And then, when I used to teach sniper school, I was running the school at the time. I would have all of my instructors teach me the class that they're teaching before they actually taught the students. And when we did that, I was able to kind of give them direction. Like maybe they didn't really understand the curriculum as well as they should have, or weren't putting out the things they should. And that's something that's interesting about teaching or training people is, when I went through sniper school and then I was a sniper in a SEAL platoon, I thought I was a pretty good sniper. I thought I was one of the better ones out there in the community until I came back and I taught sniper school. I learned very quickly that I only know about 30% of all the information that I need to know. So that's another way that you can get someone to elevate people, is to have them train other people. They may not be the best at whatever it is, but if you take the time to learn the curriculum or learn the job or whatever it is well enough that 20 people can ask you 20 different questions about one subject, you become pretty good at you learn what it is that you need to know. So that's one way to kind of like help elevate a person, have them teach it, learn it and teach it.
Yeah, definitely.
Again,
Like I'm just
a complicated answer, but
no. I'm just thinking back to, so I did telemarketing since I was 18. I'm 27 now. I worked my way up in sales and business development, and there was a point there where I started training people. And I probably had the most successful 2 months in my sales career after the point that I trained 2 people to also do the same job. So what you're saying there is completely valid and incredibly valuable for anyone listening along that wants to take their skill set to the next level. Find someone that's struggling, lift them up by teaching them.
And it's interesting. I have a couple business coaches because they didn't teach me how to be a businessman in the military. So I have some coaches, and one of them, he said something very interesting. He said he reached out to a mentor or someone he wanted to mentor him. And she said, no, I will mentor you after you learn how to mentor someone else, because then you have some skin in the game. You know how much effort it takes to train someone. I know you're paying me whatever, $10,000 a month or whatever she charged. It was kind of a lot of money. But I will not train you until you train other people. You learn that relationship of trainer and trainee, and then I will take you on board and help grow your business. And she helped him grow his business from a $300 million company to a $3.4 billion company. So whatever he was paying her was totally worth it.
No, definitely. A friend of mine said the best mentors will be very, very busy. The best mentor, the one that you want, will most likely tell you no, because they're very good at what they do and they don't have time to just be a mentor. They don't have time to do that because they're good at what they do, and that's going to make the best mentor. So I love that you said that.
They want you to take action. They don't want you to just they don't want to just if they're charging an obscene amount of money, they probably don't need your money. But they have, number one, they hold you accountable. And number two is they want you to succeed. They want you to take action. Don't pay me to just say good job. Pay me to help direct you and help you problem solve and things like that. That's sort of, like I said, I have a couple business coaches, and that's what they're like, yeah, go take action. Okay, got it. So
awesome. I want to talk about trust. I want to talk about when you're in the thick of it and there's enemies all around you, and you know that because maybe you're sneaking in. How do you trust the guy next to you? Like, because I know there's a lot, so when you got into the team, there's a process of people that funnel out of the team, but at the end of the day, you're still a team, and there needs to be trust within that team. How do you build that trust, and how do you know that it's there when it's there?
So the SEAL teams are interesting because you do a lot of hard stuff. You're put into very stressful situations. And this is before you go into harm's way. You are just the training that goes into it. And what you end up learning, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn about a lot about the team that you're surrounded with or surrounded by. And, if someone can't do the basic techniques that you're taught, even after remediation, they still do them wrong. Well, I'm probably not going to trust that person. So you learn over time, and you're put into that. Let's just say we do close quarters combat. So basically, that is you go into a building and you find a bad guy or take care of business. You're looking for something or someone in a building. The building can be very complicated. It can be a house, it can be a school, it can be an apartment building, it can be whatever. And so they can be very complicated rooms, very complicated scenarios. And you learn how to speak without saying a word. And the actions that those people your team is taking, you have to trust that they are going to do the right thing. So if you go this way, you have to trust that they're going to do that. And we do so much of that you just build that internal trust. That comes back to that some of the culture, that's some of the training. And we've had scenarios where we in the real world where one guy went into a room and his buddy went this way. The guy that went left and into the room, he ended up getting shot 32 times, something like that. A lot. It was a lot. He lived, but his buddy that covered his back actually took a round in the back of the head. The bullet went right under his helmet and killed him instantly. But it was about the trust of, I'm going this way. So, and if there's someone over here, I will shoot them before they shoot you in the back. But, one guy ran into like 3 guys were barricaded into a room, and it was an ugly scenario. But it's you build this trust through repetition, through working together. And I actually had a guy once upon a time where he was a good performer. He was naturally good at stuff, but he had enough mistakes. Guys, the rest of the team came to me and said, "We don't trust him. We don't want to deploy with him." And I was like, copy. So because I had not done the proper paperwork to remove his trident and kick him out of the team, it's a process. What we did is we basically said, you don't get to be a SEAL. You can be part of the team, but you're not going to do anything until we earn your trust. And we, just humbled him completely. And he eventually earned everyone's trust back. And he deployed with us. He did a good job. He still made mistakes. But he did eventually earn everyone's trust, and he got to stay on the team. And he got to do some really cool stuff. And he was part of but that was the team like saying, "Hey, we don't trust you." And that was our culture. We're performers, and you're not performing to the level that we want you to, or we need you to. So this is life and death. And if you're doing stupid stuff, we don't trust you. Get out. And so he pulled his head out of his butt, I guess.
That's awesome, because instead of just cutting him away, instead of just going, "We don't trust you, see you later, goodbye," like life and death, we're not mucking around here. You humbled him and you lifted him up. And then by doing that, he earned the trust back by, like, now he's motivated to earn your trust back and understood. And then he went on and I assume had quite a successful career,
And he did. He had a really good career, and he's doing some cool stuff now. But yeah, for sure, he had to be humbled because he thought his poop didn't stink, and he made like basic safety error after safety error, and that's just not cool.
No, it isn't. I wanna have a section here. So this section here is called Pitch My Product. If you've been listening to William for 44 minutes, you obviously like what he has to say. You do a lot of corporate speaking. You do a lot of things for companies to help them build their teams. And you've also got a line of supplements and that sort of thing. So yeah, just quickly, tell us a bit about what you do, and I guess this is the elevator business pitch. So we'll see if your business coaches are teaching you.
I didn't realize we were talking that long. Apparently, I'm long-winded.
No,
I didn't realize that.
I'm so glad that we have been talking that long. It means the conversation was interesting. So
right,
especially if the person's hanging around till now, like you listening in the car or train or whatever you're listening to.
Like who's the next guest?
Yeah.
So I started a company called Naked Warrior Recovery. It's a supplement CBD company, and it basically I started it because after 26 years in the SEAL teams and having some bad relationships, I was suffering. I had some baggage. We'll just call it baggage. And so my body was pretty broken after doing that line of work. So I would drink myself to sleep at night. I would do things like that. And that's not very healthy. And then I heard about CBD. I tried it. It helped me to have better self-talk. It just helped me all around. Helped pains go away. So I started this company, Naked Warrior Recovery. Earlier in we were talking about the guys at Normandy who would go in. Those guys were called the Naked Warriors. And because they basically went into combat wearing nothing more than some short shorts, a K-bar knife, a slate around their neck, mask and fins. They were basically naked going into combat, and so they were called the Naked Warriors. So that's the heritage of the Navy SEAL is the Naked Warrior. So I have a product line of CBD products and some non-CBD products. But depending where you are listening, you may or may not have access to what I have. But I also have some apparel. And I talked earlier about, get naked is sort of my slogan. And so I have an apparel line. If you were to go to, if you want supplements and I can ship it to you, go to nw-recovery.com, and that's NW for Naked Warrior. You can also go nakedwarriorrecovery.com. We'll get you there, but some people don't want to write naked into their search engine. And you can get to my apparel site, which is a separate site on there, or you can go to nakedwarriorapparel.com, and I believe I ship all over the world. And you can get your Get Naked apparel or your Naked Warrior apparel.
I will leave the links to all of that in the show notes below. I want to actually give you a bit of a live, so marketing is my background. I want to give you some sort of live feedback based on what you've said in the thing about Naked Warriors, and you can tell me I'm off center. So if you were to put so you've got Naked Warrior. If you were to put the write out like what each letter meant, like that would be really cool. I think people would then relate to it more, and then they wouldn't be embarrassed to put it in their browser. So I don't know. That's just a thought that I had. We can talk a little bit more about that off recording, but
and that actually is kind of what I talked about earlier. So naked, is for never quit. A is for accept failure. The K is kill mediocrity. The NAKE is expose your fears, and the D is do the work. So and I'm working on a better shirt that spells that out. I'm actually in the market for a graphic designer to help me make some better apparel, because I like wearing a shirt that says Get Naked. It's that simple. Getting naked it's also a mindset. It's also about taking your ego off and setting it in the corner. And that was some of the beginnings of Naked Warrior. Is we all walk around with ego, and I was kind of made a little Instagram video about it today that I haven't posted. But there's good ego and there's bad ego. The good ego is the one, I've got this team behind me. Let's go get work done. I'm confident. That's good ego. The bad ego is like, maybe you've been hurt, maybe you've gone through failure, maybe you have been in a bad relationship, divorce, whatever, fired from a job, etc. And you just hold all that negativity in, and then you just put this barrier around it, and you wear it like body armor. And that is bad ego. And you just suffer in silence, and you just fester, and it's not good. So also the Get Naked is taking that ego off, taking that armor off, taking all this crap that other people put on you and you carry around for no good reason, is taking that off, get naked, expose yourself, become vulnerable, and find the healing that you need. That's the other side of Get Naked and the Naked Warrior.
Yeah, take everything
That's
away.
The more philosophical side of it.
I have I talk about this quite openly on my show. I've got some mental health that I go through with depression, but the awesome thing is once you strip everything away, when you come back, there's this really cool kind of acceleration process of understanding what actually matters, what you're good at, what you can achieve, and it's really empowering to strip everything away, like you say, get naked.
Right.
Be vulnerable, accept what's happening, and then go, right, this is the situation. I'm now going to push through it.
And now let's get after it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a process. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's work. And that's the way the D is do the work, because there's no magic pill. There's no magic, anything out there. There are modalities that can help you. And CBD is a modality that helped me, but I still had to do work. I had to do the mental work. I had to do the physical work. I had to do all this other work. And so that again, back to that's the multiple facets of the Naked Warrior.
Definitely. I've got some fan questions. I had some people that when I said I'm interviewing you, really, really wanted to jump at the opportunity and ask some questions. So I'm going to enter that one. This one is not from my uncle. It's for my uncle. I know he's one of my big fans, and he also served in the Australian Army, but he really likes David Goggins. And so my question is, do you know David Goggins? Have you met him? It's okay if it's no, but I just know he'll like that question. And
I have not met David Goggins. However, if you follow my Instagram, Naked Warrior Recovery, at Naked Warrior Recovery, I'm going to start calling David Goggins out very publicly.
Oh, okay.
Because so in the first week of August, there is a swim, and this will be the third year that it's happened. And I did it last year. I'll do it again this year. There's about 100 people. There's over 100 people doing the swim right now, and that are signed up. And it's a swim that starts in New Jersey. We run about 2 miles. We get in the water. We swim out to a barge in front of the Statue of Liberty. We climb up. We do 22 push-ups or 22 pull-ups and 50 push-ups. And is it 50 or 100? I don't remember.
It's going to be 100.
We swim over to Ellis Island. We do it all over. More pull-ups, more push-ups. Then we swim to the downtown Lower Manhattan, where the 9/11 memorial is. We do more push-ups and more pull-ups. It's about a 3-mile run and about a 3-mile swim. Goggins has not shown up for that. So I made a video. I sent it to David Goggins. I know that David Goggins does not like the water. And he does not like swimming. You see him running, stay hard, la, 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 la. And so I don't know David. I'm really nobody in the SEAL world or whatever, but I'm going to start calling him out. David, where are you? I don't see you out here. Things like that. So
that's interesting, because David he's
happened.
Yeah, so, that's really, because David's every clip or video I see of him is amazing. I've got a lot of respect for him, and same with my uncle. My uncle actually introduced me to him, where he's been and come from, and his determination and push through. He went through buds, though, didn't he? Awesome story.
He did.
Yeah,
it's he went through buds.
Yeah, so he's
super hard man, and that's his story. It's like, you know what? Stay hard, do hard things. You don't see David swimming anywhere, do you?
I don't know. I don't follow him as much, but
I'm gonna push to get him in the water to do that 3-mile swim. I know he doesn't want to do it,
but he'll do it. He'll do it. I reckon he'll do it.
We'll see. We will see.
I'm gonna challenge you. I reckon he'll do it. I reckon he'll come back at you. He'll come back at you and go, mate, this is simple. I'm gonna
I want you to come run with me. I'm like, bro, this is not about me. This is about you. This is actually about raising money for a charity.
Okay.
And so again, like the 22 push-ups, or I'm sorry, the 22 pull-ups is about 22 veterans a day take their own lives. We've lost more veterans to suicide than we have, in 20 years of being in combat. So that's really what that's about. It's a charity that helps veterans either find a new career path, homeless veterans and first responders, things like that. So that's what the charity is about. That's why I will call him out. I don't have a problem, calling anyone out that isn't willing to show up to help out other veterans, especially when they have such a big following, worldwide following. Talk about how hard you are, bro. Let's see how hard you are.
And you're doing it. Yeah, so I like that. So you're not doing it because you just want to call him out and get the attention. You're not attention seeking.
If I can get these really big names to show up and help raise more money, then that's a win. It's not about my ego or anything else. It's about bringing more focus on the things that matter. There's a lot of trash out there in the world, in the news and whatever, things that don't matter. This is something that matters. So
love it.
Let's bring some focus, bring some attention.
Love it. This next question is from a friend of mine called Luke. He's asked, there is a physical peak when you're pushing through something like, when you're in the water or pushing your last rep, doing a rep set where it really sucks. Like, as you said, Hell Week sucks. But there's a point at which you start enjoying that pain where when you think you're done, you're only 40%. You're actually really only 40% done. So that switch, did you have that already inside you, do you think? Or was that something you learned in training? And then if so, that switch that means I'm only 40% done so I can switch into another gear, how can you develop that?
It's interesting. I very recently heard that 40% statistic. I don't know where it came from, but what I did learn, and I learned this in training, and so now that I'm no longer in the SEAL teams, I find it's very important to put myself into uncomfortable positions, do things that are hard, because it's really easy to just be kind of this entitlement thing, and it kind of goes back to what Goggins talks about. He was like, you should do hard things and you should be grateful that was very challenging. And so I don't know about the 40% rule or that last rep or whatever, but what I do know is kind of what I was talking about with that boat crew where, this sucks and we're going to suffer either in the back or we're going to suffer in the front. And there was more joy in suffering in the front, like putting out that extra effort. It's still effort. Like if you're going to do something, it's kind of like that whole, never quit, keep going, push through it, push through that discomfort. It's still going to suck. But I learned it really through physical adversity. And, one of those, I'm not a great runner. I never have been. I never will be, but I can run. And one of those things, so the third phase of BUDS is out on San Clemente Island, which is the third largest breeding ground for great white sharks. And yes, we do swims out there, and I was terrified every time we did. But we had there was the hill. So before you could eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you had to either do, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, or dips, or whatever it was, like a certain number with all your gear on, or you had to run up this hill they called Frog Hill. And it was about a half-mile sprint. And it's flat, it's, pretty easy gradient, and it gets very steep very quickly. So if you're not, and you have to make it in a certain amount of time. If you don't make it in a certain amount of time, you have to go in the ocean, get wet, come back and eat chow wet. And that is just not that much fun. So I found myself getting closer and closer to the front of the line because I'm like, number one, I don't want to eat chow wet. I hate getting wet and sandy and cold and miserable. I like staying dry as much as I can. So, but I also realized if I slow down, everyone behind me has to slow down. So I'm screwing everyone behind me and not in the good way. And so I found a new gear, a new level to push myself. I wasn't the first, but I was top 5. And because I also learned if I, doing these 4-mile time runs, if I sprint right away, I get through that suck factor, that place where I just like, you're just like, dude, this is so miserable. And the quicker I get to it and I push through it, I kind of get my second wind, I guess, is like an easy way to say that. And you can only do that by doing hard things. And it could be hard things like reading really hard books or doing really hard projects at work or doing really hard physical activities. But you have to put yourself through adversity in order to find that next level, like that next gear or that second wind or third wind or fifth wind or whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, yeah, no, for sure. That answers
you can't do it. You can't watching Netflix.
No, you got to put yourself through it. Yeah,
right.
You got to put the rubber to the road and do it. This one's from Alan. How can leaders practice decisiveness? So you need to make a decision quickly. How do you do that in a quick, yeah.
You kind of need to know what you're doing in order to. You need to have enough information to make a decision. If let's just say you're put into a leadership position and you don't really know what the job entails, you can't make good decisions. But if you're in a leadership position and you have 40-50% of the information, a lot of times it's better to just execute violently and with 50-60% of the information than wait to get 100% of the information, because generally 100% of the information is never going to come. But if you can execute a mediocre plan very quickly and very violently, you're going to have a better outcome than if you wait until you have 98% of the information.
And
then love that. as you're executing, and you see the battlefield, you see the situation change, then you can make course corrections. Maybe that you need to make you were going right, but you need to go left. But you wouldn't know that until you started going forward. So until you start going forward, and then you don't know which way really to go. So you need to take action. You need to do the work in order to make those corrections that are required.
Yeah, wow. And I like that. The worst decisions are made on little bits of information. So if you can gain like enough information for you to move forward, do that, make the decision, and then mid-decision or mid-action, if you see that the battlefield has changed, then quickly counteract that with the information that you knew.
Right. I mean, It's just like getting in a car. I don't know the statistic, but you make minor corrections, like 180 minor corrections every 60 seconds when you're driving. So, in business, you are going to make those minor corrections, and maybe you're going, this way, but you really need to go that way. So, but you wouldn't have known that until you started going down the road.
Yeah, definitely. What is the number one killer of teamwork, and how does a leader counteract that?
There are toxic people. And when you have a toxic personality in the team, you can try to correct it. Maybe try to correct it twice. Outside of that, you get rid of it. You cut the cancer off. And so, because I've had teams where I had cancerous people and I didn't get rid of them, and I paid. And then there were times, and you never really know. You're like, okay, get rid of that guy. I don't want to destroy his career, but there's a bigger mission here. He can go do something else better. But really, it's kind of like if you have a toxic environment, you have a cancer, you have a tumor, you need to get rid of that as quickly as possible. And you can try to correct it. If it doesn't correct and you recognize that it is bad, cut it off. Get rid of it. There's a right and a wrong way to do that, but do it with a scalpel, not with a machete.
What's one of the difficult leadership moments or decisions you've made, and that experience, how did it surprise you in terms of the steps that you took to overtake that the difficult leadership choice that you had to make?
I'm going to say, I think really kind of what we were just talking about, where I've had, toxic personnel that I inherited or even someone else inherited. And then the saving grace was, having this team, and sometimes my team had to be my peers, where we work together to find a solution, because I don't know everything. I had to ask for help. And so when I asked for help, I got the answers to solve the problem. The times that I failed were the times that I did not ask for help. And so, and that's just absolutely critical. You as a leader, you don't know everything. And if you're not willing, I was afraid to ask for help. I'll go run into a gunfight right now, but I'm scared to ask for help. What sense does that make? That's my ego getting in the way. So what I learned is when you face difficult scenarios that you don't have the answer for, go ask for help. Someone knows. You just have to ask.
And last section, let's get to know William. You've learned about his experiences, his lessons, his all of that kind of stuff. Let's learn the guy underneath. When you're not working and doing the things you're passionate about, you live in Hawaii. So what do you do with your free time?
Let's see. I hang out with my family. There's a mountain. It's kind of not a real mountain, but it's kind of a mountain right here behind the house. So I like to run up that with my 7-year-old daughter and kind of cruise up and down those trails. The ocean is about a 15-minute walk that way. I like surfing. We don't have great surf here on this side of the island, but I like surfing. That's one of those things where you can really just sort of zen out, and just like all the troubles, whatever is bothering you doesn't bother you in the water, because you're out there with Mother Nature. Some of it is very cleansing, and some of it is you need to lock on to like this giant wave that's coming your way right now, and either like get out of the way, or when that thing crashes on your head, you need to learn how to hold your breath for a really long time. I also like spearfishing, so I've just started getting into spearfishing. So those are the things that I work out. I try to work out almost every day.
What is it about what you do that you really enjoy? What is that thing that sparks, this is why I do what I do?
I like helping people. So, when I was growing up, even now, I still look for, and this is why I like Goggins and guys like that. They are like, their message is so strong and so powerful. They put themselves out there, and their message is helping people, and that feels really good. Going back to sort of the mission of Naked Warrior Recovery is, there's 22 veterans a day. If I can make that 21 veterans a day, awesome. If I can make that 0 veteran, that's even better. So really, at the end of the day, is being of service. And if you're in a business and you can provide a service that can help people, then that's awesome. That's win-win across the board.
Definitely. I 100% agree. Is there a quote or a thing that you see, like if you ever see it on Instagram, or even not Instagram, but I just know that that's a place where people put quotes. Is there a quote from your army days, or that you've now found when you're a civilian, or not civilian, retired army?
Civilian.
Sorry.
Yes, civilian, sir. That's
it. I just wanted to be careful. What is that quote? And would love to know what it is.
If I could remember it, I'm working on being able to recite the entire thing. But there's a speech that Teddy Roosevelt told to, I forget the venue. I believe they were in Paris, and it's the man in the arena. And basically, it talks about there are people that are they just make fun of other people but they're not willing to put their own skin in the game. And and they don't matter in life. The people who matter are the people who get out there, they fail, they get back up, and even if they fail, even at the worst, they fail knowing that they've made an impact. If they are successful, the world is awesome. But if they fail, they're still going to be better people than the people who never tried in the first place. And so it's this quote, the man in the arena. There's a bunch of YouTube videos about it, and one day I'll have it like dial and I could just like throw it out there for you, but I cannot do that today.
No, I'm actually going to. I'm maybe going to help. So I'm watching a TV show called Spartacus. Spartacus basically revolves around gladiators and in the arena on the sands, and the crowd. If somebody loses their match and then the gladiators like survives, as soon as they lose the match, the next time they come into the sands, the whole crowd is booing them because they lost, right? But if a member of that crowd went into the arena, they would be killed in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Because these gladiators train every day and really hard. So the people in the crowd aren't even in the game. So if you're not in the game, you can't be booing someone for even trying.
Exactly.
All right. So that's I think what you're
the
trying to say.
The man that matters is the man in the arena.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, how do people contact you if something has resonated with them in this? What is the best way to reach out? Instagram, email, your website. How do people LinkedIn? How do people contact you?
I'm most active on Instagram. Excuse me, Naked Warrior Recovery at Naked Warrior Recovery is the handle that I'm most active at. Yeah, I think that's where I put most of my content. I also have my personal account, which is william.r.branum, I think, is my personal account. So either one, you can reach out and ask me questions or whatever. Say hi.
Yeah,
I have the other things, but Instagram is the most where I'm most active.
Awesome. If you reach out, let William know that the podcast sent you. I know he'll get a smile from that. And William, that's it. Thank you for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate your time. I've been Tim. You've been William. We've been talking, and thank you for showing us your blueprint to determination and success.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Cool.